Hey everybody, I'm Ryan Little, and you're listening to the Filmmaking Friends Podcast, episode number 1. Today we'll be hanging out with full-time filmmaker, actor, and good friend, Mr. Ryan Kelly. Very excited to have him as my first guest. Now this is the maiden voyage, of course, of the podcast, so things could get a little bit rough, but I hope you enjoy the interview. So for people who don't know who Mr. Ryan Kelly is, he's best known probably for playing Deputy Parrish on the MTV show Teen Wolf.
Yes.
He's done lots of things besides that.
Yeah, that was my longest run. That was like 4 years.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely. I would say that's most known for that.
So, and you and I, well, we didn't meet, but the first time we were in the same room together was at the Independent Spirit Awards. I was there with Saints and Soldiers, and you were there with Mean Creek.
Yeah.
And I didn't win. Zach Braff took it for Garden State for my category. And you guys are there at Mean Creek, and you guys did win whatever the award was.
For ensemble. I think it was sort of like
something like that,
It was ensemble.
And you did go up on the stage, right? I seem to remember that you were up there, yeah. So that was the first time we were in the same room together.
It was a big room.
It was a big tent is what it was. It was a really big tent. It was like camping with like a bunch of famous people on the beach. That's what it was like. And it was a good experience for sure. But I'm interested to know what was the first project you worked on, or when was it that you decided that you wanted to be an actor? When did that come for you?
Well, I grew up acting. Sort of like my story is I have a very large family, so I have 14 brothers and sisters. The youngest 9 are adopted from all over the world, so we've got a cool little melting pot. And my mom wanted to give us a head start on paying for college. Not, she wasn't a stage mom, not trying to pay her mortgage or not thinking we would pay our college. But it was just a head start. We did a lot of print and like modeling pictures when I was younger. And that led to film and television auditions. And the first thing I did was a movie called The Roommates with D.B. Sweeney, Julianne Moore, Ellen Burstyn, Peter Falk.
Oh, really? That's cool.
And I played the son of D.B. Sweeney. And then I continued to do independent films and things like that. But what really got it was, and when I was younger, it was still, I really enjoyed acting, more so than all my other siblings, which is why I continued doing it, obviously. But even when I was younger, just like if you really love soccer, there's days where you didn't want to go to practice and your parents would have to like nudge you. And it wasn't until around high school that my parents started to be like, hey, if this is something you want to do, we're going to stop forcing you. It's starting time where you're becoming a young adult. You can figure out if this is something you want to put time and energy into it or not. And also it did cause a lot of time and energy on my parents, especially my mom. If I booked something or for auditions coming out to Los Angeles for pilot season, we had to live out here. So I always had like an older sister or an aunt or my mom mostly watching me legally.
Yeah, right.
But it was Smallville. So the first episode of Smallville was the first time my mom had like either was the first or second like serious conversation about that. About, hey, we're going to start pulling back and you're going to have to start, pulling all your own weight. And I remember looking around Smallville and it's crazy because, I'm in my early 30s now. But back then, these young actors were younger than I am now, but they were much older than me. Yeah. And I watched them kind of figuring it out and negotiate contracts and this and that and realized, oh, they do this for a living and they seem to love it. I loved it, but it also was kind of just hit or miss. It wasn't full time, obviously, because I still had I was still in high school, still had friends and a different life. So I was watching these young adults do it full time. They had a Monday through Friday job. They're on a series. They loved it. They're making money. Paying bills, I guess, is the goal. And that was the first time it clicked in me that I was like, oh, I could do this. Yeah. And I bit my parents in the butt and didn't go to college.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So I gotten started into it.
Now, you and I got a chance to work together on the movie Outlaw Trail.
Yep.
I think you and I were fortunate enough that we maybe had a couple days that were long, but we never had like
nothing crazy.
Nothing crazy. Well, no. No. The last day that we shot was crazy for us. It was like an 18-hour day because we were shooting on film and we had lost a whole bunch of the cave footage.
Oh,
and so we had to reshoot like half of a day.
I remember
So we had to do our shoot day And then we had to shoot half of a day we lost
Yeah.
because the camera had scratched the film or something.
Yeah.
Oh, that was one of the downfalls of using film is you don't see your footage until, you know, whenever it comes back from the lab. And if there's a problem, you can't see it instantly.
No, it's crazy.
And I just remembered that. And that was a really long day, but it was the last day. And so everybody was kind of okay with it and we made it. And it hadn't been like that the whole show. So everybody was like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
We're going to make it. It's the end that we can make it, you know. And I think it was an 18 or 20 hour day.
Yeah,
it was
a
pretty
longer
brutal.
day. But I enjoy those towards the end because
it was like the last day.
You get, and also as an actor, you get loopy and some
Yeah.
things. I remember, I'm pretty sure there was this. It wasn't it Dan Bird, Ariel, and I in the cave when we couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that always happens when you shoot. There's a magical hour where someone messes up and you just find it hysterical, and it's terrible at the time because the crew looks at you like, you know, these monsters are keeping us even longer and they can't get it together, you know, but you can't keep it together. You're just dying laughing. And it's just, some of the crew laughs, but some of them are just exhausted because they've been there, you know, before us and they're going to be there after us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But yes, it definitely gets away, especially in the last day or two of the show. Everyone is so happy because you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? You know,
the rap party's coming up. That's the best part.
Yeah, rap party. Exactly. Exactly. So you and I got to do that together. Obviously, you did other movies, you know, after that, of course. And then you eventually, you know, you ended up on Teen Wolf, which has been a huge, awesome success for you.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
Now, obviously, and I get a little confused with the seasons. I supported the show and I watched you on it as much as I had time to do that. But I can't remember. Is it 5 seasons, 6? And it had these A, B seasons, and I got so confused.
6 seasons. We did six seasons, but they split like 2 of the seasons into A and B.
Yeah.
So 3 and 5, I think, were A and B. And even 6 had A and B. I forget.
Well, your fans that are listening to the podcast,
they'll know.
They know.
Yeah, they know better than us.
That's all that
half
matters.
the time, I do these conventions around the world, and sometimes fans will ask questions, and to us, because we filmed them so randomly, and sometimes you film, you know how it is, you don't always film in sequence, so sometimes you're literally shooting an episode 5-11, but then you need to do reshoots from 5-2, and so it kind of just mixes together.
Yeah.
So they ask you questions sometimes where you're like, I think, and they know the answer, but you are like, I guess so.
It's kind of nice when your fans, you know, can help you out when you don't remember something. They totally know all the details. So now the show has come to its finale, which was just this last year.
Last summer,
This last summer, yeah.
Or 2 summers ago.
I think it was last.
We're still in summer, so last summer,
It was last summer,
yeah.
Because I was gonna say it's not that long ago that it had stopped, but you know, I'm intrigued. I mean, I guess my big first question about working on a TV series is, do you enjoy working on a TV series more than a feature, or is it just different?
There's pros and cons. When I was younger, I definitely loved movies because you work hard and then you have time off. So as you know, in my early 20s, then I got to play. Now that I'm getting older, I liked the consistency of knowing I was going to work Monday through Friday. Sure. It gave me purpose. I don't. When you're younger, you're more carefree. You're sleeping on your friend's couch, or you're playing video games with them to the wee hours. You know, when you get older, you don't really do that stuff as much. So I like to be busy working, and I do enjoy working. So at this moment, a series is, there's movie stars. If you name like Brad Pitt or whoever in A-listers, they do so many movies in a row that it's like they're on a series. So that would be cool.
Yeah.
I'm not there career-wise. I'm still auditioning all the time, and that's my least favorite thing about acting is auditioning. So how do you cut that out? You get on a series.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So it was nice, and then also, my favorite thing about being on a series is when you have another season, or you at least have work lined up going into auditions. There's just no pressure. You walk in and you're like, nah.
That's right.
But when you don't have a series anymore, you go into audition. Please hire me. Please. I need a job.
Yeah.
So it's just a different beast.
It feels good not to not go into audition with hat in hand, right? It's nice to know that, hey, if this doesn't pan out, I have a backup plan. I have something I can
And then
count
there's
on.
also the things from an actor standpoint, like when you're on a show for 4 years, your character better than almost anyone. So 9 times out of 10, a director isn't going to tell you something that you wouldn't already know about your character, which is kind of a cool thing. A lot of times you're more involved in the creative process. Whereas when you get hired onto a film, again, unless you're a huge, A-list actor, a lot of times you're learning from the director or the writer or whoever, the producer. They're giving you information about your character.
Right.
And they're going to know just as much as anyone, especially not all projects, but some projects. I did Prayers for Bobby, where they were working on that, I think 7 years before I ever even auditioned. 7 years.
Wow.
So they knew the character. They knew what they wanted long before I ever got involved. Yeah. And then when you get involved and they start bouncing ideas off of you, it's just not the same as if you've been on a show for 4 years and someone comes up to you with an idea and you're like, well, my character wouldn't do that.
Right.
You don't want to be mean, and then you explain it to them and then they understand. So it's just it's just really cool knowing your character. It's not boring because you're doing new episodes, new scenes all the time, but it's a comfort that you just it's nice. It just, your character. I knew Parrish. I knew how I was going to deliver the lines. I knew what I wanted, what I was feeling, it's comfortable.
So now, when you came onto the show, you came in on season 3, was it?
3B, yeah.
3B, yeah. 3B. See, there you go, the ABs. So the cast had already kind of built a bond and all that, and you're like the new guy.
Yes.
Did they? I mean, I know they're your friends now, so you can probably talk openly about this. But when you first came on the show, was it hard for you because you felt a little bit like, hey, I'm the new guy and I'm not part of their group, or did they love you and accept you immediately?
Totally. I mean, it's terrifying coming onto a new project. Even especially like one of my least favorite things is doing a guest spot where you do like one episode, or even a couple, because you're in so quick and then you're out so quick, and they and it's not that the cast isn't rude or things like that, but they understand the nature of the beast, that you're going to be gone in a couple days, so it's they're not going to go out of their way to be like, hey, you want to get drinks afterwards,
right?
And another negative thing about it's turned into a positive, but at first, so Teen Wolf started in Atlanta for 2 seasons, and then it moved to LA. It got the grant, and moved to LA, and all the actors, for the most part, lived in LA. So that's another hard thing, coming onto a set when people already live in a town, because when you get done with set, they're going to go hang out with their own friends and family that live here. They're going to go to their own home.
Sure.
Whereas when you're on location, you're bored, when you film, or if you have a day off, you don't know anyone, you're like, well, who do I know? Well, the actors. What are you doing? Let's go to a bar, or let's go bowling, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So so I feel like it definitely took me a little bit longer on Teen Wolf to warm up to all of them. I knew Tyler, Hecklin, and Holland before Teen Wolf. Oh. So I was, I had friends before, but Tyler ended up leaving not long after, and he came back, but he left for a hot minute. Yeah. And again, after we get done filming, everyone would go home, myself included. It was nice coming home. I got, I have animals, I have my own life. So in that part, it is nice. But warming up to the actors does take a little bit, and you never want to be that actor that disrupts the flow.
Right.
And you hear about, you've seen it, you hear about it. It's terrible. So I'm an actor that I'm overly cautious. I kind of, I try to be friendly, but I tend to stick to myself to never step on anyone's toes, because I already know that it's a well-oiled machine, and I know they've been here longer. There is such a thing as seniority. Like it's just the way things are. And the funny thing is, JR, who played Argent on the show, always thought I was not mean, but didn't like him because I was so guarded and didn't jump into conversations as much, because I didn't want people to think I was trying too hard. And I guess that's my flaw, is I go to the extreme of not wanting to, make waves that some people might think I'm reserved. But once you get to know me, and then now JR, I love JR more than anything, and I know he feels the same way. So.
Well, I've known you for a very long time. And I can say honestly that you are very honest.
Yes.
You're very upfront with your opinions.
Once I'm comfortable.
Oh, okay. Once you're comfortable,
right?
Okay. Well, I've known you for so long. I don't know I don't remember anything different.
I wasn't like that. The first couple weeks in.
I don't remember now.
Exactly, but I know I wasn't.
I don't remember it.
But once I'm comfortable and I know that my opinion, once I know someone knows I'm a hard worker, that I'm going to be prepared. Yeah. And my thought process, and I hope it's true, is that once someone knows, okay, he's worth listening to, then I'll give my opinion. But in the beginning, I'm always like, I don't want to step on toes, because it's no different. If day one, if I voice my opinion, and I am very opinionated, but if on day one I did, people are going to hate me, because it's like, who's this new guy?
Yeah, but you know what though, and I guess when I'm saying that you're very honest is, you don't ever play games, you don't ever have any like
motives behind what you're saying.
Right.
You're always like looking out for supporting the vision of the director.
Right.
You know,
Trying to
looking
make the
for
best project possible.
Yeah, which I really like because I've worked with a lot of different actors. Most of them have been really great, but there are some that have interesting motives behind what they're doing.
They put themselves over the film. And it shouldn't be like that.
And it hurts the film, and it's not a good thing. And you're just, you're always a real straight shooter, and even if you and I discuss something, we don't necessarily agree on a point, which doesn't happen very often, but we at least have a respectable conversation about it, and we come to the best solution, which is good.
Yeah.
We always come to something we're like, okay, yeah, no, I see your point. Okay, well, let's try it that way. Let's see, and then we, that's very collaborative, and that's what I like. You're a very collaborative person, and it's funny, I've always admired you. Like, you'll stand up to anybody who, especially when they're not being good people.
Yeah.
You're the first to defend the person who's being abused. You're right there.
One of the only reasons I want to be famous. I don't want to be famous. I like working. So I would love to have one of those careers where you slide under the radar and people may know you, but they don't bother you but the only part of me that's like, I do want to become so big so I can shut down people like that. I hate when someone's like, because there is a hierarchy. It's like there's certain people I've worked with that I can't say that to.
Yeah.
And when they're being a jerk or they're being disrespectful or they're just being wrong, they're rude, or they're treating someone terrible. I at a certain point, I always try to like say something, but there's a certain point where if they're so big, you can't say anything because then, you'll be fired. Or if you're like a pawn, like I said, if you're a guest spot on a TV show and you see one of the actors talking down to an extra, being really mean, and then maybe when the guy walks away to the person getting yelled at, you can be like, hey, I'm sorry, man, that was totally uncalled on that person. Whereas if on Teen Wolf someone did that, no one would on Teen Wolf. But if you're the lead in the movie, or if you've been around for a while, you can bark at them right back, and that's not okay, and you're not gonna get fired. But I've definitely been in situations where I've seen huge celebrities do things that are not huge celebrities, but way bigger than me, do things that irk me so bad, and that's when I'm like, okay, I wish I was famous just so I could snap back at them and let them know they're being a piece of garbage.
And I've seen you do it a couple times, and I'm always like, I like Ryan Kelly. This guy knows when to pick his fights. Yeah. So anyway,
I don't like that.
Anyway, we were talking about in the last episode being on Teen Wolf. And I actually, because I'm a director, I wanted to ask you some questions about directors on Teen Wolf for just a moment.
Okay.
So, obviously, the way that a TV show works is they don't have one director direct all the episodes because they would never have a life. So they alternate a few directors, or maybe they have one director for every episode. So for Teen Wolf, how many episodes usually on a season? 20-something?
It changed every time. So, some of the seasons were 10, 12.
Oh, okay.
Some were 20, 24.
Okay.
It was always, that was the crazy thing. Same with our hiatus. It never made sense. It was always different. It was always different.
So every show's different. So on Teen Wolf, was it just a few directors rotating, or did you actually have a bunch?
We had a few stapled directors.
Right.
And then yeah, there'd be a couple. Every season there'd be maybe one or two completely new ones.
Yeah.
But otherwise, then sometimes there was ones that we haven't worked with in a while that we liked, but they're, a lot of the directors have other shows that they're working on, and then so they're available at certain times, and sometimes they're not. And the last season was actually pretty cool because we had two of the actors. We had Lyndon and Tyler Posey direct an episode, and then we had some of the producers.
Oh, that's cool.
Direct.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was season 6.
Yeah.
It was a well-oiled machine, so they were amazing. It was just fun. It was just fun. It wasn't. I wasn't the director, so I'm actually speaking out of turn. But it seemed fun, and I had fun. So when a director comes on board, maybe not one of the regular guys that you see all the time,
but somebody new comes on board, like, how do you know, like, when you meet them and you kind of see how they're working, how do you know if it's going to be a good experience or not? Like, what are the pros? What's the check boxes for a good TV director?
There's probably better people that ask this because I'm so not in a director's mind state.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you from my perspective, it's, number one, like, so from an actor, there's tons of different, there's actors, directors, there's, filmmaker, there's directors that just care about the scene and setting up the shot and could care less how you deliver your lines.
Right.
Or what there's certain you can't, like, it's just weird. And the funny thing is on Teen Wolf, we did have a rotation of directors that came all the time. And you knew which ones were what. And so I knew if I was going to work with John Smith, that he was going to be way more
visual, maybe
way more visual, and kind of let me do whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
And then there'll be other directors that would give you way more notes on, like, hey, well, why don't you try delivering the line like this?
Yeah.
And you kind of just, when you're comfortable with them, you just know that. So it's kind of a comfort thing. Like, I already knew you were going to ask that. And it's just, and I like it because I like having a change, because it makes every episode a little bit different. But if you're a new director coming to the show, obviously to get hired again, you have to make your days. That's you know that's just in anything.
Have to make your days.
And if you've been around a lot longer, you can kind of get away with certain things. But you have to make your days. You want to encourage the actors that have been there, that have seniority or that are important, like the serious, the leads. You don't want to piss them off.
Like Tyler.
Yeah, you don't want to. If you were a new director, the last thing you want to do is come in and piss off Tyler Posey.
Yeah, right.
Because you're not going to get hired back. So it's it's very. My hat was tipped to a lot of directors that were new coming in and walking that tight line, because they have their vision and they have what they want.
Yeah.
Now, granted, every show, if you're in the 6th season of a show, you kind of like, you can watch any show on television, and there's certain angles and certain shots that they're known for.
The staple shots.
You can't go into Game of Thrones and try to all of a sudden do crazy, shaky close-ups you
can't go from like a show that's all like cranes to like all handheld.
Exactly.
Right? It doesn't work. Yeah.
So when it's a well-oiled machine, it is a lot easier. I feel like if I was a director, I'd want to be on like the pilot or the first couple episodes, because the actors are all fresh and new and they're trying to impress, and you're also so that's. But it's not to say it's not fun later on. It's just, it's more of a plug and play.
Yeah. I mean, this is interesting. Just a thought that came to my mind. Like, a lot of times when it makes sense, in a movie, we'll shoot a full master, which means we'll try to shoot, potentially if it's a dialogue scene, from beginning to end, say in a wide, right? Now, TV, you're moving at a really fast pace. And on an independent, low-budget film, you're moving at a fast pace too. They're really technically the same thing. A lot of times, I'm getting a sidetrack here for a second, but a lot of times people like say, oh, directing TV is not like directing a movie. Well, it is if the movie is shot as fast and its page count is as high. Yes. It really is kind of the same thing. But in TV, I mean, the good directors, let's just talk about the good directors, the ones you really admire, the regulars. Would they a lot of times shoot a full master? Like, you know what, let's just shoot the wide for a moment to establish the scene you guys enter or whatever, and then let's just go right into the coverage. I mean, is that how they would do it?
Yeah.
I mean, is there time to really shoot a full master?
Yeah. I mean, so another thing on Teen Wolf, we had 2 cameras, sometimes 3.
Yeah.
But 2 cameras going.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
So sometimes we would do different wides. But again, it depends on where the cameras are.
But would you shoot the whole scene? I mean, if it was like a 3-page scene? I mean, because you're not going to you would do it. You would actually take at least one take?
Because we didn't rehearse, so you would just you would
you'd shoot the rehearsal basically, as they say.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, we as actors, we did rehearse sometimes, but it'd be more like a blocking rehearsal, not like a sitcom, where you have like days of rehearsal. No, we'd have like a couple run-throughs of it, but it was more for blocking and camera, and then we would go. Yeah. But we would shoot, we would shoot wides, and it also depends on the scene, like you're saying. If it's a 8-person scene, if there's 8 actors and it's a huge thing going on, no, we're gonna break it down. But depending on the scene, you're gonna shoot the master.
Yeah, and then you would, in a traditional scene, for the editor and probably the executives and the showrunner and all that, they're gonna want to see options in editing. So, is it traditional then to do over the shoulders and singles and then try to pick up, say, little special things, little inserts or special shots, or?
Yeah,
I mean,
did you
notice a pattern to how the style of shooting was to make it the kind of show it was?
Yeah. So the pattern,
if there was,
in my opinion, the pattern is the first 2 episodes and the last 2. So the
of each season you're talking about?
Opener and then the season finale and the 2 episodes before that, sometimes 3, were chaotic. And a lot of times you wouldn't get the pickups because you were so far behind, and they would get the pickups later, or you did it, months later.
Right.
But that's just because there were so many things going. They'd make those first episodes epic, so it was stressful for whoever was doing it, and then things would slow down and then get back to, like, as I call it, like the stress-free episodes where it just seemed easier.
Yeah.
There wasn't as much action and as much actors, or like the season finale of Teen Wolf. I mean, there was the fans would know, but I mean, there are handfuls of actors that aren't typically normally in a regular episode. So there's so much stuff going on, and and then also a thing to add to the end of the season when you're doing the finale. Also, throughout the year, there's pickups that you need, so you have sometimes a whole nother crew going, like a B unit, and that adds chaotic. It adds chaos to an already chaotic situation.
Right.
And again, Teen Wolf was an hour long, so I'm sure a 30-minute show would be easier. But there were times where we would do long days, and the crew especially, they were, it was intense.
Yeah.
But fun. I mean, I was around good people. The crew were awesome, and I know they cared about me just as much as I cared about them. So I actually, even if it was long and tiring, they were fun. I had a blast.
That's cool. So you mentioned that they obviously, as with many TV series, they're trying to shoot 2, maybe 3 cameras at a time. So would they try to shoot like an over and a single at the same time?
Yes.
Versus shooting cameras 2 different directions.
Right.
I mean, there's always exceptions. But
exceptions. But no, for the most time, it would be like
let's
2
shoot
different
everything,
wides or a wide, and if they could get someone's close up. And there were definitely times where a camera, like B camera, wouldn't be needed, but the director would say, hey, why don't you try to pick up this angle? And I don't think I'm going to use that. I don't think I'm going to use it, but instead of just having you sit around,
bonus footage, basically.
Or
right?
sometimes they take the camera out completely, or go get it set up, and also depending on the space, if there was room or not, or something worthwhile. But there were definitely times where the camera operators were allowed to just do whatever they want. They'd be like, I think on a show when it's a well-oiled machine, you have trust in them, and so does the director. So it's like, shoot what you want, find something interesting. I definitely remember that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And but you know how it is. Like even on films, like I mean, you did Extinct, so you know how it gets crazy towards the end when you're like, oh, we got all the, or even just films like in the middle of it, it's still always stressful. Obviously, it's a you don't want something can always go wrong, but it's not as stressful as like the first day is pretty crazy because that kind of sets the pace.
Yeah.
And I don't care what show I've been on, the first day never goes according to plan, just because you just can't. It's just impossible. But and I'm not saying it's things go wrong. Like it's not like, oh my god, it's terrible. But it's just in life, no matter what you plan for, things can always change.
Sure.
And then towards the end, it's chaotic. Just like on Outlaw Trouble, when we were doing an 18, 20-hour day, we were talking about because we lost film footage that wasn't planned, and you don't know that till later. Yeah. So all of a sudden, it's another level of stress. But it's just like that's just such a
actually, I was just thinking about this. When we were shooting on film, Outlaw Trail specifically, we don't really have playback. I mean, we could have had playback, but we didn't really have it. Now there's the luxury of playback.
It's nuts.
Is it nuts? Like on a TV show, like on our TV show Extinct, we just made it a policy unless we had to look at it for a specific continuity issue or something like that. We just made it a policy that we're not going to play back and look at everything because it's more important to get more shots and more coverage than it is to be looking at a monitor talking about a specific thing. We just need to keep moving forward and put trust in each other. So we really didn't take the time, to look at that. But on Teen Wolf, because of that convenience, was there ever like, okay, I'm the head actor on this show. Now I want to go look at that take and waste 5 minutes. I mean, did that ever happen? I say waste.
It was never.
I say waste, but maybe it's not a waste.
So certain directors did more playback than others. Same thing. I think most people are in the same mind state as you, where they'd rather shoot more than. There a lot of sometimes. I mean, sometimes the script supervisor was looking back on something just for continuity, like we couldn't, like, was this in so that's the coolest part about it.
That's fine.
But there were definitely times where I would even just ask while we were waiting for a new setup, and like B camera I knew was covering me, I'd go over to the camera operator and be like, hey, Bob, can I see that back real quick? And because now technology is so amazing, it takes 2 seconds and you can see it back like that. And also, I mean, there's different people are doing the handheld, they have their own screen, and you can go over to them and ask, hey, can I see it back? And you can see it on like 4 different screens. So it's definitely different. And I think most people don't want you to, you're not going to you don't have time for that.
No. What's actually really good right now is now we use these really great Teradecks that actually have an additional program or app that you can use where you can actually transmit a Wi-Fi signal to people's personal devices. And if they put the app on their phone or their iPad, they can actually watch the feed. Now, I realize if you're in the scene, you can't see it. But if you're off camera or something, that gives you the opportunity to kind of like, watch it yourself.
Back in the day, cool. When I was a kid, like on Roommates, I remember my mom, you bought one of those TVs.
Yeah, so the little
black and
antenna.
white TVs with the antenna, and
Yeah.
you programmed it.
Yes.
And it was terrible. My mom used to watch on it was
It was like 2 inches
teeny.
or something.
And then you get like headphones. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
crazy. Now on Teen Wolf, we had like huge screens.
Yeah.
Like you could see so if something for a script supervisor or anyone, a costume department or props, like so much easier to see detail. I don't
Sure.
like back in the day on the little black, like how do you
Yeah.
can't, it's impossible.
Let's talk about this for a second, because I find this to be completely fascinating. So, since I've known you, Comic-Cons have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And Teen Wolf came at a time when Comic-Cons and those kind of things became very popular, and they're very popular now. And you do a lot of those.
Yeah, I do a lot of conventions.
Conventions.
I went to the first Comic-Con for the Teen Wolf panel when I wasn't in it. I actually
Really?
so Prayers for Bobby was directed by Russell, who also directs a bunch of. Well, he's a producer and also
He's an
he
Australian filmmaker.
Oh, he's
did
phenomenal.
a really great movie called Razorback, if you've ever seen it.
And Prayers for Bobby. No, I'm just kidding. No, but yeah, I did see Razorback.
Oh, I love Razorback.
His resume's huge. He's done tons of.
Oh, he did
he did music videos,
Resident Evil. He did a Resident Evil movie too, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember which one though.
But
anyway,
he's
super
phenomenal.
talented guy.
So I worked with him on Prayers, and then
Yeah.
he did Teen Wolf, which is how I knew about Teen Wolf before it ever even got started. But
Yeah.
so I went and asked him a dumb question. I stood in line and asked I stood in the question line to ask him a question, and it was something about M&Ms, because he's on Prayers for Bobby. He loved having M&Ms, like a handful of M&Ms always while we're filming.
Yeah.
So I cracked some joke, and typically at Comic-Cons, the directors, sometimes I get questions, but a lot of times in that particular case at Teen Wolf, it was all like about the young actors. And then so Russell, I remember his head was down, and when I asked the question, I was like, "This one's for Russell," and his head popped up like, "What?" And then he clocked my face and was like, "Oh." But I went to the first Teen Wolf convention, and I wasn't a part of Teen Wolf.
Yeah.
And then I've done a bunch of conventions in
So
Europe
many.
and in the States.
Where do you go? Where do you go the most for conventions? It seems like it's Europe.
I would say probably Paris is the biggest.
Yeah.
That has the most conventions. France, I guess, because there in other parts of France as well. But Paris probably. But I mean, there's Rome. I mean, you name Portugal. We've gone to Portugal. We've gone to. I never went, but there's conventions in Brazil. I've done them in Australia. There's ones in New Zealand. I mean, there's convention. There's fan conventions for anything you can think of that could potentially want to hire Teen Wolf. But we've mostly done Teen Wolf only conventions, and I've done a couple Comic-Cons.
Well, and you must meet fans that like know more about the show than you guys who worked on it.
Most of the fans know more about the show than that. That's
crazy.
another thing. Like fans, and we've done them so much that a lot of the fans actually do know this, because we have said this at times. Like in the beginning, they're like, "How do you not know that?" And again, I explained this in the previous one we talked about, where when we film episodes, we're mashing them together. We're not filming in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like the fans are watching them. We're filming them in random order sometimes, and sometimes they're mixed together. And also, there's a bunch of stuff that gets cut that we think didn't get, or like you forget about.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, like one time I was on stage with Lyndon and we were talking about a scene, and then we had to laugh because we're like, wait, that scene never made it. No one ever saw this. And then we're like, oh, that was a good scene. How do we find that one? And that's just because we don't. It all mixes together. Like the season finale of Teen Wolf, people saw just that last episode, but we were filming probably 4 or 5 episodes at the same time. So I've done scenes where you're shooting. I shot my last scene of Teen Wolf, and the scene before I shot that I was ever going to be in, and right before that was a scene from like episode 2. Yeah, so it's super confusing at times, and you're just like, what? And also it's a job. It's a job. So you could be filming Teen Wolf, and then some other actors sometimes go to other shows, and so again, it's just like a weird. Sometimes your brain just doesn't. We don't. You don't see. For what you see on TV is not what we have in our heads. Yeah. Just like with directing, I'm sure. I mean, you especially directors, because you're involved before, after. Yeah. And during, and definitely after. Like actors don't really have much to do.
Well, what's interesting, when I worked on a feature, because I'm so in it. Mm-hmm. I can keep it all straight. But when I worked on the TV show, it was like spaghetti. Yes. Felt like I was doing 5 movies at once. And I was like, I cannot keep this straight in my head. I literally had to take notes and had to have people remind me all the time, like, oh, yeah, that's right. This doesn't happen until we just shot that, but it actually happened before. And oh my gosh, like spaghetti, dude. Yep. Like spaghetti. So unrelated to Teen Wolf for a moment, another great movie that you did with Russell, right, was Prayers for Bobby. And what was cool about that movie, it was a great movie, by the way. That was a TV movie, though, right?
It was for Lifetime.
Lifetime. One fabulous movie for Lifetime. Won some great accolades for that.
Sigourney Weaver.
With Sigourney Weaver, played your mom, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's Ripley.
Yeah, I know.
It's awesome.
That was.
Did you ever tell any kind of alien-esque jokes on set? Or was the tone of the filming, because the show was so serious?
Yeah, the show. Well,
was it serious on set too?
It was one of. So, Prayers for Bobby is a project that I have never-ending pride. It's one of my projects that I've done that I have. It's
based on true story.
So I'm super proud of my work, but filming it was miserable because it's based on a true story about a young boy who took his life, and there really there was a real journal and there's a book, and so I had to be in that mind state the whole time. And Sigourney plays the bad person or an evil person so well in so many things. And in Prayers for Bobby, she wasn't necessarily evil. She kind of was at first, and then she does a 180, and that's the cool story.
Right.
That's what makes
she has the big character arc of the show.
She is a class clown, and first off, it's Sigourney Weaver, so she would talk stories about shooting alien or shooting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I say this all the time. One of the coolest. This shows how great of a person she was. The first couple, maybe like the first 2 days at lunch, like actors always get broken for lunch, typically early, than the crew. So we had a huge lunch tent, and there's a big table in the middle and a bunch of small ones around. Well, Sigourney sat in the middle, and people were like making makeshift tables on the outskirts to not sit next to her because they didn't want to bother her. They didn't want her to think like, it's Sigourney Weaver, like, oh, don't make eye contact or whatever. Like, she a diva, and she's the complete opposite. She wanted people to sit around her. So by day 2 or 3, for sure, people were fighting to sit next to her because she was telling stories that fascinating. Like, any movie she's ever done, talking about her adventures on it. And because she's a pro, she's been doing it for so long. She has the most entertaining, insane stories. Now, I wanted to listen to it, but I kept having to walk away because she would make me laugh nonstop. She's one of the funniest people I've ever worked with. And I would have to walk away because she would, and also fascinating. And I'd be just entranced in these stories, and I'd have to be like, no, I have a huge scene after lunch, I can't, and I'd have to walk away. So it wasn't as much fun for me. But when the filming was done, it was such a relief and I had so much pride, and I was happy, and I gave it 120%. So.
Yeah, for sure. But you did a great job in it.
Well, thank you.
I think that it is definitely fulfilling when you get to do a project not for money or for some other reason, but purely because you believe in the story that's behind it, and you give your all to it, and then people appreciate it, and they come up to you and they tell you how much they appreciate it and stuff. And that's very rewarding.
Yes, that happens on every project you do. There's always people that connect to it in different ways. But Prayers was on another level. When you would have moms and dads coming up to me crying, telling me I changed the way they look at their son or daughter. I'm just an actor, man. I had a very little part to do with it. This thing, like I said, they have been working on this project 7 years before. There was a book. Mary Griffiths is a real person. She's been working hard for rights and to change people's perception for long before I ever came about. But when someone comes up to you crying, and or a daughter or a son comes up to you crying, and be like, my mom now talks to me because of this film. It's like hits you like a ton of bricks. There's no words to describe how that makes you feel, and as an actor, you're lucky if you get one of those in a lifetime. And so I hope I get to do another one. I hope, but
once in a lifetime on Lifetime.
But yeah, no, that film definitely changed lives and was something so cool to be a part of.
Well, I'm sure you'll do lots more awesome, great projects, Mr. Kelly. You're just too talented not to. Well, listen, thank you for being on part 2 of our hangout on my little podcast. To finish this interview, tell everybody one more time where they can find you on social media.
On Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, _RYAN KELLEY. Actually, it's not on Facebook. I think Ryan Kelly's official. Instagram and Twitter. That's all it is. The Ryan Kelly. _Ryan_Kelly.
And if you have any questions or comments for me, the best place to send me a message is on Instagram at RyanLittle_director. I check my messages there more than any other form of social media that I have. So do that if you have any comments or questions. And thanks for tuning in, and more great guests to come on future episodes. Have a great day, guys.